Close your eyes for a moment and imagine standing at the counter of a corner store. The smell of cheap coffee lingers in the air as you tuck a lottery ticket into your pocket, never thinking much of it. Hours later, after dinner dishes are stacked in the sink and the television hums softly in the background, you scratch the surface of that ticket. Each number appears slowly, and your heart begins to pound so loud you can barely hear yourself breathe. Suddenly, you're no longer wondering how you'll pay rent or how to make the car payment. You've just become a millionaire. That feeling of sudden hope, freedom, and possibility, most of us only dream of it. But for one man, what should have been the start of a beautiful new chapter turned into a nightmare that ended his life. This is his story. Before we go any deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And if you're new here, click on the subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. In the summer of 1996, Mark, a hard-working man from Chicago's West Side, bought what he thought was just another scratch ticket. He was in his early 40s, modest, dependable, the kind of man neighbors described as someone you could trust with your spare key. His life had never been extravagant. He worked steady jobs, paid his bills, and did his best to help those around him. But that night, when he scratched away at that ticket in his small kitchen, his world changed forever. The jackpot was $20 million. At first, he couldn't believe it. He paced the floor, called his family in disbelief, and whispered through tears, "I think our luck just changed." Even in shock, he showed his true character. He agreed to share the money with his ex-wife in an amicable split. It was never about greed for Mark. It was about fairness, family, and hope. After the initial shock of becoming a multi-millionaire, Mark decided to build a life that reflected his values. He didn't splurge on yachts or luxury cars. Instead, he invested in a small popcorn business in Florida, hoping it would give him a sense of purpose beyond the money. He wanted to create something with his new wife, Laura, a woman he believed shared his vision of starting fresh. But Mark's wealth did not remain private. Word spread quickly among family, and requests for help came flooding in. Laura's sisters leaned heavily on him, asking for rent, car payments, or cash to get them out of trouble. Each time, Mark felt torn. He sighed quietly but always agreed, telling himself, "We're family, they need me." What started as generosity soon became obligation. The very fortune that should have lightened his load began to weigh him down, binding him with invisible chains of expectation. Over time, those invisible chains began pulling tighter. Mark had always believed that helping family was the right thing to do, but he noticed the pattern. Every problem seemed to land at his doorstep. When Laura saw the endless requests, she grew restless, sometimes lashing out during late-night arguments. "They only call you when they want money," she told him more than once. Mark, ever the peacemaker, brushed it off, responding, "It's just money, we'll be fine." Yet deep down, he wondered if he had lost control of his own life. His popcorn business struggled to take off, and the weight of expectations pressed on him. At night, he would sit alone in the kitchen, rereading bills while Laura slept. He wanted to believe his fortune was a blessing, but it was beginning to feel more like a curse. The truth, which he couldn't see yet, was that his trust was being tested. It was a humid summer night in 2005 when everything changed. The air was thick, the kind of Florida heat that clings to your skin, when Mark's phone rang. On the line was one of Laura's sisters. Her voice was calm but urgent. Her car wouldn't start and she needed help. Mark didn't hesitate. That was who he was, reliable, always willing to lend a hand. He told a neighbor as he walked out the door, "I'll be right back." Those words would be the last anyone in the neighborhood would ever hear from him. He climbed into his truck, the porch light casting a dim glow over his figure as he pulled away. The crickets chirped in the distance, a soft hum against the night. He thought he was heading to do a simple favor, but what he didn't know was that he was driving straight into a carefully planned trap. Hours passed, and Mark didn't return. At first, Laura called family and neighbors, her tone high-pitched and panicked, though some noticed something unusual about her voice. It lacked the raw confusion and fear you'd expect from someone whose husband had suddenly vanished. By midnight, concern grew, and a missing persons report was filed. Detectives arrived the next morning, moving carefully through Mark's house, noting every detail. His wallet, his watch, his daily belongings, all untouched. It wasn't a robbery. Soon, the investigation led them to an apartment tied to Laura's sister. When officers stepped inside, the air was heavy and still. There, they discovered Mark's body, bound and shot in the back of the head. The scene was quiet, but it spoke volumes. This was no random act of violence. This was betrayal, planned and executed by those he trusted most. A fortune that once promised hope had instead demanded his life. From the moment Mark's body was discovered, suspicion circled tightly around Laura and her family. Detectives pieced together a chilling timeline: financial struggles, dependence on Mark's generosity, and the scheme to control the money without him. The phone call for help that lured him out that night was no accident. It was the bait. As the case moved forward, Laura and her sister were arrested, and prosecutors laid out the evidence in court. The trial was heavy with grief. Members of Mark's family sat in the gallery, clutching tissues, listening to testimony about the betrayal that stole his life. His sister wept openly, whispering, "He trusted everyone. That was his only mistake." When the verdict finally came, it was clear: guilty of first-degree murder, kidnapping, and conspiracy. Life sentences were handed down. Justice, in the eyes of the law, had been served, but no sentence could bring Mark back.
Mark's story is more than a tragedy about wealth and greed. It is a reminder of how fragile trust can be. He believed in generosity, he believed in family, and in the end, that very faith was turned against him. His friends still gather at the small park where he once liked to sit, leaving flowers and sharing stories about the man who always put others first. And while his fortune is gone, what remains is the memory of his kindness. Let me ask you, if you won the lottery tomorrow, who would you trust with your fortune? Would your generosity be your strength, or would it leave you vulnerable, as it did for Mark? Share your thoughts with us in the comments. And if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe so you never miss the stories that remind us all of life's fragile balance between love, trust, and betrayal.